Some journeys begin with a single step. Joseph's journey began with a dream. But not just any dream, a vision that would set in motion one of the most remarkable stories of betrayal, survival, and redemption ever told. This is the story of a young man who lost everything, yet gained more than he could have imagined. This is a story about how God can take the worst moments of your life and weave them into something beautiful.
Brothers, I had the most incredible dream last night. We were binding sheaves of grain in the field, and suddenly my sheaf stood upright, while all of your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to mine.
Do you intend to reign over us, little brother? Will you actually rule us?
Wait, there's more. I had another dream. This time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me.
Joseph was gifted. Joseph was favored. Joseph had dreams that came straight from God himself. But Joseph also had something else, a 17-year-old's lack of wisdom about when to speak and when to stay silent. His brothers didn't see a prophet in training. They saw an arrogant little brother who needed to be put in his place. It didn't help that their father, Jacob, made his favoritism obvious. He gave Joseph a special coat, an ornate, richly decorated robe that screamed, "Favorite son." While his brothers wore simple tunics stained with work, Joseph paraded around in royal colors. Every time they saw that coat, it was a reminder that they were second best in their father's eyes. Years of resentment were building into something dangerous. Jealousy is like a slow poison. Drop by drop, it corrupts the heart until love turns to hatred and brotherhood becomes betrayal.
Here comes the dreamer. Father sent his precious favorite to check on us, as if we need supervision from a boy.
He's far from home. No witnesses out here.
Let's kill him. Throw him in one of these cisterns. We'll tell Father a wild animal devoured him. Let's see what becomes of his dreams then.
Don't shed blood. Throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him.
Reuben secretly planned to rescue Joseph later and return him to their father. But sometimes even good intentions can't stop what's been set in motion.
Brothers, what are you doing? Stop! Please!
In seconds, Joseph's world shattered. The brothers he trusted turned on him like wolves. They ripped off his coat, that symbol of his father's love, and threw him into an empty cistern. Imagine the terror, the confusion. One moment Joseph was the favored son with dreams of greatness. The next, he was at the bottom of a pit, bruised, betrayed, and utterly alone. The dreams that once seemed so bright now felt like cruel jokes.
God, where are you? Why is this happening?
While Joseph wept below, his brothers sat down to eat bread. They had gotten so comfortable with their hatred that they could enjoy a meal while their brother suffered. But then something caught their attention.
What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh.
20 pieces of silver. That's what Joseph's brothers decided he was worth. Less than the price of a good donkey. They sold their own flesh and blood for pocket change.
Brothers, please, don't do this. I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Please. Judah. Reuben. Please.
And just like that, the dreamer became a slave. The favored son became property. Joseph's journey to Egypt began with chains around his wrists and questions flooding his heart. Had God forgotten him? Were the dreams lies? Was this the end? In Egypt, Joseph was purchased by Potiphar, a high-ranking official in Pharaoh's court. And here's where something remarkable began to happen. Joseph could have become bitter. He could have given up. He could have spent his days angry at God, at his brothers, at the unfairness of it all. But instead, Joseph made a choice that would change everything. He chose to be faithful right where he was. Even as a slave, Joseph worked as if he were working for God himself. He didn't just do the minimum, he excelled. He brought the same excellence to scrubbing floors that he once brought to dreaming dreams. And God noticed. The Bible says the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in everything he did. Within a few years, Potiphar had promoted Joseph to be manager of his entire household. A slave had become second in command of one of Egypt's most important homes.
Since I put Joseph in charge, I don't worry about anything except what food to eat. The Lord has blessed my household because of him.
But success brought new tests. Potiphar's wife began to notice Joseph, his integrity, his character, his appearance, and she wanted him for herself. "Come to bed with me, Joseph."
Master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?
Day after day she pursued him. Day after day Joseph refused. He understood something crucial. Integrity matters even when no one's watching. Sin against Potiphar would also be sin against God, and Joseph wouldn't compromise his character for any pleasure or advancement. But one day she went too far. She grabbed his cloak and demanded he sleep with her. Joseph made the right choice. He ran. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is flee from temptation, but a scorned woman can be dangerous. She decided if she couldn't have Joseph, she'd destroy him.
Hebrew slave you brought us tried to attack me. I screamed and he ran, but look, he left his cloak behind as evidence.
Potiphar probably didn't believe her story entirely. If he truly thought Joseph was guilty, he would have executed him immediately. That was Egyptian law. Instead, he had Joseph thrown into prison. It was a compromise, but for Joseph, it was devastating. Can you imagine what Joseph must have felt? He'd done everything right. He'd been faithful as a slave. He'd resisted temptation. He'd honored God. And his reward was another pit, another betrayal, another fall from grace, from his father's house to a pit, from the pit to slavery, from success in Potiphar's house to prison. Every time he climbed out of a hole, he fell into a deeper one.
God, I don't understand. What's the purpose of all this? The dreams you gave me, were they just to torture me with hope?
Here's where Joseph's character truly shone. He could have become bitter. He could have cursed God and given up. But once again, Joseph chose faithfulness over bitterness. Even in prison, even when it made no sense, Joseph trusted that God had a plan. And once again, God was with him. The prison warden noticed Joseph's integrity and put him in charge of the other prisoners. Joseph turned even a prison cell into a testimony of God's faithfulness. He bloomed where he was planted, even when he was planted in concrete. Then one day, 2 new prisoners arrived, Pharaoh's cupbearer and chief baker. Both had offended the king and were awaiting their fate, and both had troubling dreams that no one could interpret.
Why do you look so sad today?
We both had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them.
Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams.
Joseph listened to both dreams, and God gave him their meanings. The cupbearer would be restored to his position in 3 days. The baker would be executed. Joseph had one request for the cupbearer.
All goes well with you, remember me. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in prison.
Everything happened exactly as Joseph said. The cupbearer was restored to Pharaoh's service. Joseph watched him leave, hope rising in his heart for the first time in years. Surely the man would remember him. Surely his freedom was just days away. But the cupbearer forgot Joseph. 2 more years passed. 2 more years of waiting. 2 more years of hope deferred, and hope deferred, makes the heart sick. Then, when Joseph had almost given up hope, everything changed in a single night. Pharaoh, the most powerful man in Egypt, had two dreams that terrified him. He summoned all his magicians and wise men, but none could interpret them. And suddenly, after 2 years, the cupbearer remembered.
Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. When Pharaoh was angry with his servants, he imprisoned me and the chief baker. Each of us had a dream the same night, and a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. He interpreted our dreams, and everything happened just as he said it would.
Bring this Hebrew to me! Immediately!
Joseph didn't even have time to process what was happening. One moment he was in a prison cell where he'd spent years. The next, he was being shaved, cleaned, dressed, and rushed to Pharaoh's palace from pit to palace in a single morning.
Had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it.
I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires.
And there it was. After all these years, after all the suffering, the purpose began to crystallize. Those dreams God had given Joseph as a boy weren't just about his own future, they were preparation for this moment.
The dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. The 7 lean, ugly cows are 7 years of famine. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout Egypt, but they will be followed by 7 years of famine so severe that the abundance will be forgotten.
Now let Pharaoh appoint a discerning and wise man to oversee the land.
Let him collect 1/5 of the harvest during the 7 years of abundance and store it. This food will be a reserve for the 7 years of famine, so that the country will not be ruined.
Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? Since God has made all this known to you.
Well, there is no one so discerning and wise as you.
You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you.
In one conversation, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from forgotten to famous, from chains to a chariot. At 30 years old, 13 years after being thrown into that first pit, Joseph became second in command of the most powerful nation on earth. Joseph threw himself into the work with the same faithfulness he'd shown in every circumstance. He didn't gloat. He didn't take revenge on those who'd wronged him. He focused on saving a nation. And when the famine came, just as God had revealed, Egypt was ready. The famine was severe across the entire region, including Canaan, where Joseph's family still lived. And one day a group of foreigners came to buy grain. When they bowed before the Egyptian prime minister, Joseph recognized them immediately. His brothers, the men who had thrown him in a pit, the men who had sold him into slavery, the men who had destroyed his life. They didn't recognize him. How could they? The 17-year-old boy was now a 39-year-old Egyptian official, but Joseph knew them instantly. Joseph tested them, not for revenge, but to see if they had changed. Had 13 years softened their hearts? Had guilt transformed them? And what he discovered moved him deeply.
Surely we are being punished because of our brother.
We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us.
They had changed. They were different men, humbled, remorseful, protective of their youngest brother Benjamin. And finally, Joseph could no longer contain himself.
I am Joseph. Is my father still living?
They were terrified. The man they'd wronged now had the power to destroy them utterly. But what Joseph did next revealed the secret that had sustained him. through every trial.
Come close to me. I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping.
But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance.
So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God.
Do you see what Joseph understood? Every pit had been a stepping stone. Every prison had been preparation. Every betrayal had been part of a bigger plan. What his brothers meant for evil, God meant for good. The 13 years of suffering weren't meaningless. They were necessary to position Joseph to save thousands of lives, including his own family. Joseph brought his entire family to Egypt, where they were saved from the famine. 70 people came down to Egypt, and they would grow into the nation of Israel. The Messiah himself would eventually come from this family line. Joseph's suffering saved not just his generation, but all generations to come. So, what's the message of Joseph's journey? What do we learn from his incredible story of faith? First, that God never wastes your pain. Every difficulty, every betrayal, every unjust circumstance, God can use it. Joseph's pit wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Second, that faithfulness matters more than circumstances. Joseph was faithful as a slave, faithful as a prisoner, faithful as a prime minister. Your character isn't determined by where you are, but by who you are. Third, that God's timeline isn't our timeline. Joseph waited 13 years between the promise and the fulfillment. 13 years of wondering if God had forgotten him. But God hadn't forgotten. He was preparing both Joseph and the circumstances for the perfect moment. And finally, that forgiveness is freedom. Joseph could have destroyed his brothers. He had every human right to seek revenge. But instead, he chose to see God's hand in his story. He chose to believe that his suffering had purpose and that faith gave him the power to forgive. Maybe you're in a pit right now. Maybe you've been betrayed by people you trusted. Maybe you've done everything right and still ended up in the wrong place. Maybe you're in your own prison of circumstances, of addiction, of pain, of waiting that feels endless. Joseph's story tells you this: your pit is not your destiny. Your present is not your future. The same God who was with Joseph in the pit, in Potiphar's house, in the prison, and in the palace, that God is with you. He hasn't forgotten you. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. Years later, after their father Jacob died, Joseph's brothers came to him, afraid that now he would finally take revenge. But Joseph said these words that sum up his entire philosophy of life.
You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives.
From pit to palace, from betrayed to beloved, from slave to savior of nations. This was Joseph's journey, but more than that, it was God's faithfulness on display, and the same God who wrote Joseph's story is writing yours. Your pit has purpose, your pain has meaning, your waiting has wisdom, and one day you'll look back and see that every piece fit together perfectly, not in spite of the hard times, but because of them. That's the incredible journey of faith, so hold on, keep believing, stay faithful, because your palace is coming, and when it does, you'll understand why you had to go through the pit to get there.